Professor, how are you?
Very good, Mitch. Good to see you again. It's been too long.
Good to see you. I got to say, it's good to see you in one place because hearing about your life just wears me out. Everything, you're not retired. You're working harder now.
That might be true. That would not be a comment on how hard I worked when I was working.
Ah,
I kept level. That made it easy.
well, that's part of why I want to discuss this topic with you today because I don't know. We talked earlier about maybe working in the word paradigm to the title of this episode, but I don't think retirement's the same as it was before, or as people maybe perceive.
Yeah. Well, I
Because
think
for
part of it
me,
is, I'm sorry.
no, no, go ahead.
I was say part of it is if you think back, I mean, I think of this like Social Security. When FDR started that thing, the expected lifespan was like 63 or 64. So they started this great deal where you start getting paid at 65, which was a great plan for the government's point of view. But people didn't live to be, I mean, some people did, but the idea was most people were dead within 4 or 5 years of, especially when you were working coal mines or
Oh
dangerous
God.
jobs and stuff like that. So part of what makes retirement different now, I think, is that if you're pretty healthy in your mid 60s, there's a really good chance you'll make it to your mid 80s at least, and maybe 90. So just the thought of how much life you have left before, I was just kind of running out the clock for a little bit, just demographically speaking.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it because I'm thinking of like myself as one of three people that I talk to often. We're all in varying degrees of health and how we choose to approach retirement. But um, I was also, I mean, because that's relevant because I was talking like before Christmas to, I was going to air quote my financial advisor, but he's a real financial advisor now because he got his degree, got his degree and
Not just a
everything.
guy
So
at the bar that gives advice about crypto or Bitcoin or something.
we kept going back and forth, and I've been bouncing back and forth with DT and probably yourself about when to take Social Security, like you're mentioning. And I told him I had a long discussion with my good buddy. Maybe you know him, Chat GPT, but I had a good discussion with him, and he
Good
was
guy.
like, we've decided 67." And I'm like, "That's fair. And I talked with my advisor about it. He's like, then he brought up some number about 8%, and I don't know, but he kept saying to your point, he said, if you plan on living into your 80s, don't take retirement Social Security until you're 70 to max it out
Right.
because he knows where you are. Other people are different. It just depends on your financial situation,
Right.
how do you want to approach it. But he keeps pushing on 70. I'm still leaning towards 67, but he's right, like you say, though, because I just saw one of the legends of Chicago Blackhawks hockey because I was born in Chicago.
Yeah.
Uh, love the Blackhawks, but he just passed away at 94. And I know those are anomalies, but I see no reason why you and I, and maybe even DT, and not the other one we are talking about, because he don't stand a chance in hell. But don't live to 85, 90.
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah.
a guy. I was at the because it's the new year, and I've to save money, I've also arranged new insurance because and you know how that is. So I had to go to talk to the medical people. But as I'm standing trying to explain it to in one of the medical offices, I saw somebody jump in front of me, and he was like, and they're taking his information. She's like, birth date, and he's like, yada yada yada, 1946. I'm like, what? Did he just say? But he looked great at 80. He looked great.
Yeah, the variation between amongst people for that kind of stuff. And part of it's genes, the longevity and stuff like that. But I think we told you before about DT and I, we went to Europe, my family and I went to Europe, and we took him with us. And
Yeah.
we did the trip throughout Europe, and we met that Kiwi guy, the New Zealander, who was 92 or something like that. And he was like going up Montmartre right ahead of us. Like he was just a machine. He fought in World War II. And we had that story. He's the one that pissed in Hitler's bathtub. He's the one that had like they went up to the Eagle's nest right
Yeah,
after.
yeah.
But the guy you'd never think, we were thinking maybe 70 or something like that. He's in amazing shape. And
Yeah. I don't see any
versus
reason
people you see
why.
that are broken down at 60.
Well, like you're saying too, like the earlier days, I doubt they had. Well, let's face it. Like in the really early days, that was still when doctors would prescribe a cigarette if you're feeling bad. Have a smoke. You'll feel.
As they
So
were smoking during your exam.
yeah, yeah. And you're smoking at dinner, and because I was telling my son when he was visiting over Christmas. I remember my grandpa in Chicago. he had that lamp by the table by his recliner that had the ashtray in the middle,
Oh,
and he would sit there and smoke cigars in the in the house.
man.
Wow. Oh.
Wives put up with a lot more back in the old days, is what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
that was my point. I was
But like,
because grandma put up with a lot from my.
if I tried to light a cigarette in my house, my wife would be hell to pay there.
But I think the point now is though, because I see so many people as they enter like retirement, let's say, well, at a young age. For
Mhm.
me, I was 62, and I
Mhm.
still have a hard time even saying I'm retired. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yep.
I just, yeah, I probably am, but it makes me kind of nervous. You know what I mean? It gets because I don't think it's not the time. Like I just put in some of the notes we made for this, it's not the time to coast. I really don't feel like this is time to just sit back and this. I'm going to wake up in the morning by 9:30. I'm going to be in the hammock on the deck. That's not going to happen.
Yep. Yep. I think for especially for I was thinking when I saw this topic too. I don't know how I think this is partly gendered for sure because most men, so much of their identity is tied to your job that
Yeah.
I think there's sometimes men will have a harder time retiring because there is a weird it's an existential kind of change for you in a way that maybe it isn't for everybody. Or if you never had a real job that you loved or whatever anyway, you were just punching the clock until you could get out. Um, but if you've had a job and been kind of goal driven and stuff like that, I mean, the first question you usually ask if you meet somebody new at a party or whatever else, if it's a female, the questions are all over the map because you're half of it. You're thinking, what does she look like without those clothes on, something like that. But
Even
everybody, the
still,
first
yeah.
question for a man is usually, what do you do? You know,
Yeah, I
so
hear that a lot about people say, from people from other countries say, they're surprised because I think it's an American thing. It's not
maybe.
like, well, what do you do? And I don't even know what to tell them. It's like I've asked, I've been asked it a few times. They're like, what do you do? I'm like, right now, a whole lot of nothing. But
Yep.
but then podcast comes up, and I'll be honest with you, I've still got a couple applications pending, and I'm hoping they come through.
Oh yeah.
And we'll talk
Yeah.
about that to the end. Why? Because I met, one of my neighbors. I was outside talking about 3 weeks ago, and I think she's maybe 10 years older than me. She looks like me. She's maybe 40 years older than me. Just
Mhm.
kidding. But but I know she's retired and she's happy with potting plants and walking over to the. I saw she walked over to another retired neighbor, next, and they were there talking like 3 o'clock or like 3 hours. I went to go to the grocery store. I went to work out. I came back, and they're still standing there talking, and that's a good day. I mean, it's probably good. That's all they want. But I don't
Yeah.
know about you. And well, I do know about you. That's why I'm saying I'm glad to see you in one place now because your life kind of tires me out. I hear about all the work you're doing, but I think it's all about, like you mentioned, like men. I think it's because there's certain standards that we've been held to for so long. And not that women aren't, but in the job world, it's like your effort, your conduct,
Yeah.
uh, your usefulness. Whether you're still contributing. It's like,
Yeah.
and now it's like all that structure is taken away. So now you're free, and there's a difference between, I think, you get or learn between freedom and drifting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I thought that was funny that the drifting in the notes that you sent, the drifting idea. I remember thinking, on one hand, it's definitely I don't appreciate a day off now like I used to. When you were working, man, when you get a day off, even when you're a kid, if you get a snow day, it's like the
Oh,
freaking happiest, you know. And in high school or college, when there's a teacher work day or whatever BS they make up to give you a Friday to give them a
yeah,
Friday
God
off,
bless them. Yeah,
and holidays and stuff like that. When I was a college teacher, I was excited about MLK Day or whatever as any of the students were because it was a day off. And now it's just when you have a sequence of them, it's great, but you don't appreciate this, as much in a way because of
yeah,
that.
probably not.
But drifting is not a good, I think you need some kind of goal and some kind of purpose and everything. And if you don't come up with one or find one, and I think guys think I'm going to play golf 5 days a week or I'm going to go fishing 5 days. That is not, that
Yeah.
almost never works in my experience for anybody because it's just not.
Oh, I agree. I mean,
Uh,
because I've had times when I think, yeah, you know what? I don't have to do a damn thing, and it's only powerful if it's optional. But now it's just like, or if it's a rarity, like you say. And I'll be honest, I'm not breaking bad on anyone, including my ex-wife. But after I got divorced, after a while, I would wake up like on a Saturday. I'm thinking I can do whatever the hell I want all day long, and like retirement kind of feels like that a little bit. It's like, and then sometimes I check myself. It's like, and I'll look around, and you have to be grateful of where you are and how you've gotten here. And
yeah.
like I say, I was laying. basically dead on a shop floor 25 years ago, and now I can retire at 62. So that's something. You should be
Yeah,
proud of that, but you can't get too caught up in that stuff.
right.
It's because if you let like mornings when you're doing nothing, they'll slowly turn into weeks where you're doing nothing, and
Right.
it's like,
Right.
and I that just like I say, I'm stuttering now because it makes me nervous.
Yeah. Yep. And I felt like I retired 3 years ago. I beat 60 by 2 weeks. I turned in my final grades and
Good
like
man,
May
good
10th
man.
and then retired May 28th, 3 years ago.
59.
Yeah, 59 and 99%. I mean,
Just don't even say it. Don't even say it
59
because
and 50 weeks. But I've got 3 rental houses that I've bought over the years and work on and maintain stuff like that. So it felt like, and honestly, by now, by that phase, the financial equation is I strategically made so little as an English professor. Financially,
attaboy.
it was kind of easy to slide into. I was getting more off of the rental houses 5 years before I retired than I was making up my job. So it was easier kind of psychologically. I didn't feel like I'm going to start eating away at the savings or whatever because I've got this other income coming in. But also it gives me something to do. And you and I were talking before, this 3 weeks that just passed is when I do a ton of maintenance because one of my houses is a college house, and two of them are businesses that they in old houses. And so the business is shut down over Christmas and the college kids are gone. I do more in the last 3 weeks, the 3 weeks between December 15th and January 7th than I do for months before and after. I actually felt like I was putting together a fence, one of my jobs this time, and I'm sitting there like whistling to myself. It's like ridiculous, but it does feel like I feel happier and then when I have a couple months of not that to do, I'm reading books, I'm trying to learn German, I'm doing all these other things, but I don't feel as fulfilled or as happy if I don't have some kind of project. I'm almost happy when something breaks that I can go fix or carpentry or whatever.
Yeah,
How
thank you.
about you? I
That's
know you've been half a year or something now retired. Are you making up projects or what's your,
well, I try not to just like make it. Of course, there were things that I needed to do right away. Like, I needed to, because at the time I had like a 90 some thousand miles on the Jeep, and the Jeep was saying, "Hey, I'm getting pretty old. Why don't you change my spark plugs and points?" Okay, I'll do that. And
once every
like
90,000 miles?
then, then I had like a couple medical things I had to take care of. Then I had a couple. So the first couple months goes by before you even know it.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, I haven't gone one day on one weekday when I don't get up at 0600 still. Just what it's what I've been doing for the last 25 years. I don't know how to change it, but I
Hmm.
love being busy in the morning. I think it's because like I used to have days when I worked in, especially in tech. It's like at the end of the day, my ears are buzzing. I can see like white dots of light. I'm like, I
Yeah.
cannot believe how much I got done in one damn day. But it's not. And then now, it's like, like you're saying, it's like what or who still needs you in what way. And I think that's big because for you, I know, and for me, it's for our kids still need us too. It's like, they don't depend on you out of necessity anymore. But I like to think that they're, steadier, uh, maybe a bit better than we were, just because we're still willing to be there for them.
Right. Yeah, that does feel like that's definitely, I don't know. I think a lot of people have, I mean, we've talked before about some of the goals in different parts of your life. And I was thinking of that same thing, thinking about retirement, the financial, the health,
Yeah.
so working out, doing something like that, the kind of social and everything. And I think a lot of people have a hard time if they don't have a social network. If their social network is completely at work, that is a much tougher transition. I've
Yeah.
got some
Yeah.
poker buddies. We play poker once a month that I met through our
Really.
daughters. We had daughters in the same school at the same time, and a buddy and his wife that I play golf with once in a while. And it just feels like I've got a nice dispersed. I like to be alone enough that I'm happy with that stuff. But I think it's toughest on people. The people that have heart attacks 6 months after they retire are guys that just had everything was work, and all my friends were work and everything else. And so we've got a church. We're not as active as we should be. A lot of people are older and stuff like that. But I did go. The church put out a call. A widow, her husband died recently. She's going to sell her house, and it really has deferred maintenance. That felt so good, to be able to go over there and do some. About 15 or 20 of us over there chainsawing stuff down and replacing a couple decks, and just, you got to have some kind of purpose or something. And it just feels like if you drift, that's when you're in trouble.
I think that's like being able to contribute because it kind of fights irrelevance, gives your days, that kind of meaning.
Yeah.
And, and I've joked before, and I think you'll agree, it's like at some point in my career, like after both companies that I worked at the last 25 years had made me a manager when I wasn't even thinking about it. But then I realized, I've accidentally learned a lot of stuff, some stuff that's, I can help contribute to developing these kids or developing these younger people behind me, which I really
Yeah.
loved. But it's a choice though. It's definitely, I mean, because it's like, you know, because there's a difference between, I think, like what works, busyness can become like, in your own mental camouflage for like, I'm still relevant. There's there's a difference between contribution and motion. So I think you have to care like beyond you. You don't want to be, it doesn't mean you're saving the world, but maybe, carry some weight, set an example, sharpen
Yeah.
you, like you're saying, like you're still learning German. You're still, right away, I read 4 books I've been looking for. And I'm wanting to do so. I read in the first 2 months, I read 4 and wrote one. So it's like, what? Okay, that felt good.
That's
But
great.
but it's still a challenge. And I say wrote one, but you and I both know it's a pamphlet, and but I think, even though it's only about 9-10,000 words, it's something I think will help other people if they just take the time to order it. It's called it is on Amazon.com. It's by Mitch Wonders. It's called I can't remember. Life's Tough, Be Tougher. But there's just like 10 lessons in there. And I have had a few friends order and read it, and people I used to work with, and they're like, yeah, Tim, this is really relevant. Or Mitch, whoever you want to call him. But they're like, it's relevant, and we appreciate having you done. And they're like, they all gave me stories about how they could relate to something in there, which is great, right?
That's very cool. Yeah, that's good. It feels like, and what you're good at too, it's nice to be able to, like you say, if you mentor somebody, or if you know, or if you have, or even a kid, if you're helping them in adult life or something, learning things or something like that, it just feels good to be able to pass what you know on to somebody. And
Yeah,
that's very cool. I love it.
and being willing to, I think I'm kind of surprised. I'm a better person than I thought. but but
Well, the funny thing is now you do have there's always an excuse when you're working, you're always busy enough that I don't know if our church would have put out a thing and said this widow has this problem and whatever. I don't know. I like to think that I would have jumped right in to do it or whatever. But if it's grading season, no way. I've got all these papers to get. I'm already miserable because these stupid things are over my head. I got to get
yeah,
these things. So it is nice to kind of be able to turn your focus, to shift it away from yourself, anyway, and on to something you can do, someone you can contribute to, or whatever else. I'm cleaning out our pond in our neighborhood, taking down some little trees and weeds and stuff like that,
nice.
which I never would have done, before. I like the pond, it's pretty, but it's like it's not mine and no one asked me to and whatever. But then it's like, well, yeah, it's nice to be able to, I got some time here and feels like you should be doing something.
I think it's because like I say, both companies that I left, they had made me management before, and so I had title. So it's like, what do you do? What's your identity after your title's gone? It's like, I don't know
Yeah.
if it's that big a deal to lose
Yeah.
your title. For me, it wasn't anyway. But
Yeah.
I'll be honest, there were some pretty sweet perks to being a manager, but there was a lot of work too. But so you kind of think to yourself, what should survive retirement? Survive retirement unchanged. Like from
Right.
going from you still should be at least competent. You should still have a discipline, and
Mhm.
like you say, a curiosity. Those things don't age out, I don't think.
Yeah. No, that I don't. I've actually gone back. I've volunteered and taught at least one or two writing workshops every semester since I left. The guy that replaced me, I picked him and trained him and stuff. Or I got to influence the boss to let me hire that guy, and then trained him to run the writing center. And so I've gone back, and I have lunch with him once a semester and teach a workshop or two. And that just feels like, to me, I can still teach. I'm good at this and I enjoy it. And so I don't need
Yeah,
any money for it or whatever else. Let me just come in and pitch in, and I kind of miss that. Like you're saying, the title, although being called doctor all the time was kind of cool, but I always felt sheepish about it because, come on, a real doctor, somebody, if they're,
well, see, so
I
you're
need to
like
do
me. It's
chest
like that.
compressions or something.
It's like
If
the
you're a real
humility
doctor.
thing. It's like, nobody ever called me, manager Mitch. It was just like,
Yeah.
there's Mitch. He's the senior program manager. Oh, senior even.
Yeah.
Well,
Not just a
wow, now
program
we're
manager.
talking.
Out of my way,
But
program managers. I'm the senior
yeah,
program
yeah.
manager.
Well, even before I hired on, it's like I interviewed for, like, just say, for theoretically a program manager job or senior program manager's job. Didn't get it, kept trying, got the program manager's job, and friends, and then grew into senior. Just so you know,
Nice.
and but
Knifed a couple colleagues in the back to get over to climb over
oh,
them.
you're
I
damn
know.
right. Honestly, you better hope to know who's next, but. But really, I mean, I was surprised. Like it's like I always had the mindset, maybe you do too. Just keep your head down, do good work, and then think good things come from that.
Yeah.
But you can't help but look around. But
Yeah.
uh, that discipline and self-respect, because the thing with what retirement does, I find, and let me just, like, I should have said this a long time ago. If you want to be that person that lays in the hammock all day long, if you felt like that's who you've earned it, God
Yeah.
bless you. It just doesn't feel like it's for me, and it doesn't sound like it's for you,
I'll
because I
bet it's
think,
not for I bet it's not for most people. Almost everyone thinks that's going to be for them until they actually get there. And like you say, the first week or two, it's amazing or whatever, but
oh, it's the best thing in the world.
give it a month or two. Well, I think about if you just think logically, when did you ever do that before? I went on vacation for a week. That's when I played golf 5 times 1 week or laid in a hammock. But that was special and great because it was 1 week and you knew it was going to be over and you were going to be back to the job.
Yeah,
That's what made
yeah.
it great and it's unbearable. Once that you can do that every day, then you're like, what's the point? What am I doing? You know?
Well, that's what I think and I'll be honest with you, my tension's kind of easing now that we're talking about it. But retirement gives you that choice. It's like, if is it like, do you see it as a gift, or do you see it as more? Because to me, it feels like not a liability, but a chance to. It's challenging you. It's like tempting you to
Yeah.
be that lazy. That And when you mentioned, like, you still work out, I was glad, because I was hustling every evening. It seemed like, to go to work out, and now today I'll commit hour and a half, 2 hours every day. Love it. It's great,
Wow.
and
That's
and
great.
it's showing. You can tell, right? That's what you should have said, but
This is the part when you take your shirt off, right?
I'll never. I'll be. Let's sidetrack for a second, because this is an anomaly I've seen since I moved to Austin, Texas. I'm not sure it's Texas, but I've lived here about 7 years now, and coming on 8. And guys have a propensity when they're running to do it shirtless. And I'm talking about guys like me, not like guys like, a young Stallone or something, yeah, they're out there. It's just guys like me. And it's like, really? Are you? And I want to just like, hey, Casper, get some sun. That's like, I don't, what I'm driving by, but anyway, but it's more like, now it's like, what happens when nobody's watching anymore, right? It's like,
Yeah.
ooh, you can
Yeah.
either keep your edge, or you can slowly teach yourself that it doesn't matter anymore.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I remember the psychological principle of an external locus of control versus an internal locus of control. And the idea was, I remember coming across that in school, and they talked about, like, people, if you're a victim mentality, if you've got an external locus of control, you think the stuff that's influencing your life is mostly out of your control. It's outside. So it's society or capitalism or racism or sexism or whatever. And that's such a painful way to go through life. And it's learned helplessness. It makes you miserable. If you have an internal locus of control, I'm the master of my ship here. I'm going to do the best I can. I know there's stuff I can't control, but I can, it's that kind of, you can't control the wind, but you can control how you tack into it or how you set your sails or whatever that.
Yeah,
I don't know enough
something like
about
that.
sailing to know how that works, but I think the idea is internal locus of control is so much better. A mindset as a person and stuff like that, you're going to accomplish so much more. Everything's going to be better, and it's sort of the same thing in retirement. The external then is the external standards or judgment or whatever. When you're on the job, you've got people making you do something or giving you your mission or whatever. One of the
Your
big
goal and your
psychological
time
shifts
frame.
is, once you retire, now I'm going to have to be internally setting all these things, my goals, my discipline, all that stuff, and my shame if I don't get it done. I'm gonna have to shame myself or discipline
Yeah,
myself because I don't have a boss or a wife or somebody to do it for me, as the case might be.
I'm lucky, because I, like, for the longest, like, maybe the last 30 years, it's like my whole, if I'm doing stuff at home, it's like, well, it's got to get done, and ain't nobody else here to do it. Like, damn it,
Right.
I know. So let me ask you, because we talked about it, and you mentioned a little bit earlier about the homes you have as a second source of income. How do you feel? Do you think people in retirement look at their financial plan, their work plan, and maybe try to revisit it later, or maybe even try to bolster it and maybe go back to work?
Yeah, I think I think for most guys, my instinct is I was going to bring this up. Probably most guys should really consider about getting at least a part-time job in retirement, just because it balances a couple things. It does, the finances can be helpful even if you don't end up needing it. We talked about before, we don't know how long we're going to live. If I'm going to be living till 90, I'm going to outgrow my savings or whatever, that feeling is there. And so if I know I've only got to make it 18 more months, woohoo, going to Vegas and whatever else, but it's
Yeah,
nice to
shoot the
have.
rail.
So the financial part is important, but also the thing, everything we've been talking about, psychologically having a purpose and interacting with people, being extroverted or having a social, meet people and talk to them and stuff like that. I think that's good for most guys, probably, to at least think about that, even if there's no financial necessity. But I was also talking with DT about where he just retired too. And there's a number
Did,
when you get
did
to
he
some
though?
magic number, if you
Did
thought,
he though?
well, I think he's going to do this, the part-time job. I think he's going to be a consultant. We'll have to have him on
Oh
sometime
gosh.
and talk to him about it. But he was offered, he's good at his job, a bunch of stuff we've been talking about before. And so some of the companies that his union has worked for have approached him about, would you be willing to be a foreman or something like that? You can't be, the title can't be a foreman because the union rules or whatever it is. But basically, he would be a consultant doing what he was doing before, and he can do it whenever he wants, which he pretty much did anyway. So his job was sort of, you can turn down a
Yeah.
job whenever you want. But just the idea, I think it's gonna, and he and I have talked about that. Most of his social networks at work and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's good for people to. The last point I was going to make is he and I talked about, the weird thing is psychologically, when we got to a certain point of saving, say your goal your whole life was to be worth $1 million net worth or something, and now you cobble together your house and a little bit of IRA, and if I've got a rental house that's worth so much equity, I'm over $1 million. If you would have told me I was going to be over $1 million, when I was 30 or whatever, I'm an English professor, no way, I'm going to be, I'll be
Exactly. Yeah.
collecting coins out of the couch so, but once you get to that point, psychologically, it's weird. If you ever dip below it, you freak out. There's
Yeah.
something about that number. So the first time the market goes down a little bit, if most of your income is, I've got an IRA worth X amount, and now it's down $995,000,
Uh-huh.
I'm
Uh-huh.
going to be out on the street or and so, and you reset it. If you make 2 million, it'll happen again. If you make 3 million, so there's some weird thing that I think we should fight that, because that's
No,
not
I
good.
agree.
That makes you not content with whatever you have. You can worry yourself into, that's how you get to be those miser weirdos with the coffee can full of, cat food that you're eating, in your
Or
apartment,
or,
and
or
you die
bacon
with $1
grease in the
million.
fridge that you keep saving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because even like you say though, even with a well-built retirement plan, markets, are fluctuating. Your health, that can bump
Yeah.
into your costs. We just talked about that a little while ago.
Yes.
Uh, but they're unpredictable is the point. But
Yeah.
like you say, when if you get part-time work, it just helps strengthen your plan. It doesn't rescue it or
Absolutely.
anything. Like you say, you're not desperate, but they can help bolster it. But I think it's like it doesn't, if you choose to work in retirement, like I mentioned, I have a couple applications pending. In fact, that lady I was telling you about across the street 3 weeks ago, I told her I had a couple applications pending, and she took one step back, put her hands on her hips, and looked at me. She said, "But why?" And so she really did. But what doesn't have to be about money. It can be about service. It can be about identity, or it can
Right.
be about finishing, something that never quite you never quite closed. It can
Right.
be a contribution or a curiosity.
Mhm.
But it's it gives you the rare chance to align with what you're good at. You've accidentally gotten good at something. What still challenges you and what still matters. So I think that's perfectly. Even if you want to go at it with like a 2-year plan, do
Right.
it, man. Like, do you want to go like, next year, like when you start thinking like at 64, because already I'm worried, like I've been out of work for over 6 months. Is that going to look bad on an application? And
Yeah.
but do you want to go, try to revisit it a year later and come back and do something that means a lot to you? It's going to be tough. I mean, it's
Yeah.
tougher anyway.
It should be a win-win-win. You're getting a little bit of income. If it's part-time and you make $1,000 a month, that's 12,000 a year that you don't have to withdraw from your pension or your IRA or whatever, from your IRA or whatever your savings are or something like that. So that's great. It keeps you connected some way. Maybe you start building another social network, with people at work
Yeah.
there. You enhance your feelings of, and maybe there's somebody younger at work, so you can help show them something. I'm only going to be here for a year or two, but I can I can make a big difference in their life for the next 30 years if I teach them some stuff they didn't. So it seems like that should be win-win all the way around. You know,
It could be
the
win win
difference
win.
is something you mentioned before. If it's optional, I was the happiest year I had on my job was my last year because I had told we talked offline, but when my daughter got her got a college scholarship that meant I was off the hook for college. All of a sudden, so I go into my boss right away and say, "Hey, I've got F me money or F you money, so I can retire. What would you think if I left?" And it was right around pandemic, and he said, "Please stay for another year because the way things are going right now, I don't know if they might take your line." I had a professor line and running the writing center. Administration, everybody's hunkering down because of COVID, so they might take your job away. So please stay one more year if you can. If there's anything I can get you to do, that was the happiest year of my life because I know I was bulletproof. Man, I'd walk in there, slap a
Oh
secretary
yeah.
on the ass, and nothing can happen to me. I'm kidding. I didn't never would do such a thing. But just the idea, if anybody asked me to be on a committee or something I didn't want for the first time in my life, you go, I don't think so. Just and it wasn't obnoxious, but it was like that was the happiest year of my life because I was more conscious of the fact that everything you're doing voluntarily. No one's making you do it. You don't have to worry about, am I going to get a bad job evaluation this semester? Will the students give me a bad evaluation? Who cares? I'm gone. There's nothing to be.
Oh, that's
So
sweet.
that should be your retirement. If you've got a chance, like you say, you got some applications out, you're not going to take a job that you feel really iffy about the way you would have when you're 26 and you
Yeah.
need to make rent, or
I
mortgage.
did I did turn down one already with
Oh,
let's just
really?
say with a federal program, let's just say
Okay.
that delivers mail, kinda. That's
Okay.
all I'm saying.
I think we
But
can
yeah,
guess
like you
what that
say, it's
is.
like, and like I said, after I revisited with my financial planner, like I said, I spent 4 months validating that what I had planned on was accurate and is actually better than I thought. So,
Cool.
and he and I discussed, he's like, and part of what we talked about, he's like, you don't have to take just any job. And why do people? Because I'll be honest, I was seriously thinking about, I wanted to be, and we probably talked about it before, when I land on some of those business trips I took over the years, I would see the guys out there doing with the guiding the planes in.
Okay.
And I was like, that would be a great job. And he's like, they're like, they also have to heft the luggage too. I'm like, sounds like a workout. That's great. And they're like, did you ever see any of them look happy? Like when they're doing that, they're like, you don't have to take that job. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
they probably absolutely needed the work. I
Yeah.
don't, like you were saying.
Right.
So I'm out there just because I'm having fun guiding a big ass plane with these
Right.
two orange sticks and telling them to stop right there. And I could use phrases like tango and Utah and all that. And anyway, but I think, because it's like, for me, it just feels like the whole summation, if we want to, if we can, it's like, if no one expected anything from us tomorrow, what would you still get done? And
Nice.
I heard somebody say retirement doesn't lower the bar of expectations for you. It gives you the bar and you place it where you want, where you think is
Yeah.
important. So
That's
that I
good.
think is, I can't help that as far as summaries go.
Yeah. That's that internal locus of control. I'm setting the bar or going without a bar and feeling kind of aimless or something like that. I remember my dad he retired from the gas company and they forced him basically he had enough injuries over the years and stuff, back surgeries. He couldn't work the street anymore. He couldn't do the heavy equipment, all that stuff. So he lasted one more year in the shop, which is where old guys or injured guys went. They would put you in the shop. So there's so many pallets of meters coming in or whatever, and you're doing inventory and you're sitting, it's air conditioned in the summer. It's heated in the winter. There's the Cubs games on the radio. That's a lot of the
Oh,
young lazy
that's
guys are
I
like,
would
that's
go there now.
I know that's what I'm saying. A lot of people, that was the ideal. It drove him crazy because he's an outdoor guy and stuff. So he retired at 57, but he right away started painting. He took up painting and did a pretty good job. But he probably painted 35, 40 pictures the first, paintings the first year he retired because he's doing like a job like you. He's up at 6 o'clock. He's on the clock painting or something like that. And these are not
Basically,
going to be
yeah.
sold for money, right? Well, and then he went but he had a series of jobs that he did with driving things around, and he drove a little shuttle at a hospital to take people from the parking lot up to the hospital if they were, compromised or whatever.
That's nice. I've seen that job's open still.
Yeah, but that's what it was. And I remember him saying when I was a kid, he was saying Simpsons are working dogs, not show dogs. In that kind of sense of we're not fancy people or whatever else. We're not doctors or lawyers or whatever else, but we're we're workers, and that's what we do, and that's part. And you're supporting your family and whatever else. And even when you retire, I think it's good to have that idea that I'm going to find something to be useful, and the things we've talked about today contribute.
It's funny you mention that because my dad, when I only think he waited till because he never retired. First of all, he was a chiropractor, but I
Mm,
asked him one time, because he said he came up to me. He's like, he was always, I think, trying to teach me things, but I was like always the dick. It's like
yeah.
I've got stuff I got to do, Dad. But he would say, you know why I never retired? He's like, because people still need me. But so he cut his hours in half. But he
Yeah.
also was a painter. Like, I don't know if he did it when he started in retirement or partial
Uh,
retirement, but we found a bunch of them after he passed away, and I mean, they're not. Let's face it, they're not gonna be like that.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
they were pretty talented painters.
Yeah. I've got one right here in the room right now that I'm looking at. That
I
I
should find one. I mean, I'm sure my older brother Greg, he's probably squirreled a few of them away, the rat bastard. Uh, yeah, maybe I'll reach out to him today. See, there you go. There you go. I've got that
nice.
kind of time. I'm going to reach out to
So,
my older brother Greg, rattle his cage, scare him into mailing me one of my dad's paintings, and my day will be complete. Then I'm going to go work out again. You know what I might do today? I'm thinking about because I haven't. This is going to be the first decade since I was like, what are our teens? So what are our teens? Right?
yeah.
So teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I have not skateboarded yet in my 60s.
Oh wow.
So I'm going to break out the longboard today, I think.
DT did that. He got a skateboard and
Yeah, I mailed him one of mine.
oh, did you? Oh,
Yeah, it
cool.
was
That's what it
because
was.
I was before I launched the podcast, I had
That's
concepted a longboard company called Double Dog Longboards because I
oh
thought about it
wow.
when I was 55, and I don't know why 55 felt like a double dog, but a dare, you know what I mean?
Uh,
But I've got a nice logo and everything still, and I got a couple good ones out in the garage still. But
cool.
I mailed him one to weight test. Don't tell him that. But
He also
because
this is a good idea. I don't know. I know we might be getting toward the end. He the skateboard, and that was a great experience. He liked that. He did wipe out on a corner, hit a gravel thing stuff.
yeah, he
But
told me recently.
the funny one was someone he bought himself a pair of Healy. One of his nieces or something had those Healy shoes for a while
Yeah,
with the.
bonehead.
He rolled 6 inches, fell backwards, and snapped a bone in his wrist. He said it was the most painful. He's been in wrecks and had his tailbone cracked and skiing, jumping off a ski. All the things he's done his whole life, and motorcycle almost died in that wreck and stuff. And he said that was the worst pain he's ever had in his life, and it came after he rolled like I don't know a foot or two on a healing. Good, you're in your 50s
Oh
or whatever he
man,
was at the time. That's what you need is a set of shoes that are also wheels and
don't
wiped out
tempt me.
immediately. So
Yeah, those honestly, I was always jealous because those look like fun.
yeah,
And
until you find
but
out the
even
reality.
yeah, I can see that because to do that you have to get up on your heels, and there's nothing stopping you. That center.
So there's the polar opposites of your experience. Let me do some skateboarding. Let me do something cool that regains some youthfulness and stuff, and do that. On the other hand, don't be the idiot on the Healy that ends up in traction after after you're
That's another
60.
thing. It's like I know if I told our other two friends that I was going longboarding today, you're like, yeah, hell yeah, do it. It's not regaining youthfulness. It's like I haven't, it's just something I like doing.
Yeah,
And I think they're like you say, we're young enough. uh, Like I mean, when I sent out these notes, it was like this whole relaxation about retirement thing. I'm just gonna hit the hammock. Not right now. Maybe in 15 years, maybe. But I still think we're 15, 20 years away from that kind of lifestyle.
yeah. Well, and the saddest thing about retirement for people is that they just kind of rot. I remember the first time when I was looking at an old airplane to buy, and the guy said the best, easiest, straightforward way to kill an airplane is to let it sit. And that's the same about any kind of cars or whatever else. All the seals go, the gaskets all go bad and stuff if you don't
They
run it.
dry up and
You know,
you try to
and
use it
so
and they're like they
health and
fail.
yep, health and all these other things are you need to keep active. And we know what's coming for us. We hope it's 25 or 30 years away. It might be 10, but there's going to be a time when you can't go for hikes, when you can't try to
Yeah.
skateboard, whatever else. So it just seems like the longer you can do that stuff, you should. And maybe the more you do it, the longer you can do it too, within
Yeah,
reason.
I've always said that like about at airports and like with electric automatic doors. You see perfectly healthy kids come up and punch
Yeah.
the handicap door and it opens
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
I'm like, especially at airports and escalators, like I'll take the steps. There's going to be a time when I need that escalator,
Right.
but it ain't now. I'll
But
take
it
the
is
steps.
not this day. There may be a
Yeah,
day when the courage of the men of the West failed, but it's not
there you
this.
go. There you go. You make me sound an old man. But
That's
it's been great touching basic. It always is, Professor. I mean, I'm glad. Number one, I'm glad we can get you at least a half hour or so away from. You're going to go walk right back into the maelstrom. I know it, but
that's right. I got
uh,
some pickets to put up this afternoon, young man.
like picket fences
Picket
or
fences, yeah, putting them
okay, okay. I thought you were like the demonstration or something like that.
up. No,
Okay, enough of that. But yeah, it's always. I'm glad we could get together, have a few laughs. It seems like we do it every time, so we got to do it again.
absolutely. Happy New Year too, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. It is. Oh gosh, it is 2026. We're closer than we thought.
Good
All right, Professor. Thanks
to
again for
talk to you.
stopping by.